listen to me carefully. A seed can never grow while clinging to the tree it came from. It must fall, be buried, and die to what it once knew before it can become what it was created to be. And woman, right now, heaven is calling you to release your grip on something or someone so you can step into the fullness of what you were born for. There is a yes in your spirit that God has been waiting to hear, but that yes cannot coexist with what you refuse to let go of. You see, detachment is not the absence of love. It is the presence of vision. When you detach, you are not saying, I don't care. You are saying, I care too much about my destiny to be delayed by what no longer aligns with it. This is why God will sometimes remove what you thought you needed, because he knows it was only meant to serve a season, not a lifetime. I've discovered that the most dangerous attachments are not always toxic relationships or destructive habits. Sometimes they are good things that have expired. And when you keep holding on to expired things, you poison your future. Abraham could not step into his promise until he left his father's house. Ruth could not enter Bethlehem's destiny until she turned her back on Moab. Esther could not save her people until she detached from the anonymity of her past. Every woman in Scripture who was used by God first had to say goodbye before she could say yes. But here is the deception the enemy uses. He makes you believe that letting go means losing. No. Letting go is not rejection, it's redirection. It is God saying, I'm taking you somewhere where this can't follow you. You see, God doesn't just call you out of something, he calls you into something greater. True strength is measured by what you can walk away from. Anybody can cling. Anybody can stay where it's comfortable. But it takes divine courage to stand up and say, this is no longer where I belong. That courage is the breeding ground for miracles. Hear me. Before God elevates you, he separates you. Separation is not punishment, it's preparation. When the eagle knows it's time for her young to fly, she begins to remove the soft feathers from the nest. It becomes uncomfortable because comfort is the enemy of progress. And God is doing the same with you. That discomfort you feel is not random. It is God stirring you to detach because your wings are ready. Woman, saying yes to God will require saying no to distractions. Your destiny cannot afford divided loyalty. You are too anointed to waste another year negotiating with what you should have already left. You are too called to be delayed by what you are afraid to release. Heaven is waiting for your yes, and your yes will break chains you didn't even know were holding you. Purpose is the foundation of a woman's identity, the blueprint in the mind of God before you were ever formed in your mother's womb. When you truly understand your purpose, it becomes the compass that directs every choice, every relationship, and every step you take. Without purpose, attachment becomes your substitute for meaning. You begin to hold on to people, places, and possessions because you believe they complete you. But when you discover why you were created, you no longer need anything external to validate your worth. You are no longer desperate for approval because you are anchored in the truth of your assignment. Purpose precedes attachment because purpose defines alignment. You don't choose where you belong based on comfort. You choose it based on calling. And anything or anyone that does not serve that calling, no matter how appealing, cannot hold you. This is why so many struggle to let go. They have not yet grasped that they are designed for more than what they are holding. When a woman knows her purpose, she is not swayed by temporary emotions or seasonal connections. She recognizes that some things are only meant to accompany her for a chapter, not a lifetime. She measures relationships not by how they make her feel in the moment, but by whether they push her closer to her destiny. This is not arrogance, it is stewardship of the life God has entrusted to her. When you live from purpose, you are free to love without clinging, to give without fearing loss, and to walk away without feeling incomplete. Because your identity is no longer tied to what is in your hands, It is tied to the one who placed purpose within you before you even took your first breath. Letting go is often misunderstood because many see it as rejection, abandonment, or failure. In truth, when God calls you to release something or someone, it is rarely about rejection, it is about redirection. Detachment is a divine strategy. It is God shifting your focus from where you have been to where you must go next. Sometimes what you are holding on to was once a blessing, but seasons change. And what was meant to carry you through one stage of life cannot sustain you in the next. Holding on too long can turn yesterday's provision into today's hindrance. God's redirection is not random, it is purposeful. He sees the road ahead and he knows the environment, relationships, and mindsets you need to fulfill your assignment. This is why he will allow discomfort, distance, or even disruption to break attachments that would anchor you to the wrong place. When you see detachment through this lens, you stop fighting it and start cooperating with it. You begin to trust that every ending is simply the doorway to a new beginning. Redirection often requires faith because you will be stepping into spaces that feel unfamiliar. But faith thrives in the unfamiliar. If you remain bound to what you know, you forfeit what God is trying to show you. Detachment then becomes an act of obedience and trust, not in yourself, not in your circumstances, but in the one who knows the end from the beginning. It is the willingness to say, Lord, I will go where you lead, even if it means walking away from what is comfortable. That posture allows God to position you in the exact place where your gifts, your voice, and your purpose will have their greatest impact. Emotional freedom is one of the greatest gateways to hearing God with clarity. When your heart is tangled in constant emotional noise, the fear of losing people, the weight of past wounds, the craving for approval, it becomes difficult to discern the still, small voice of the Spirit. The soul can only reflect divine direction when it is still, much like water only reflects clearly when it is calm. Many miss God's guidance because their emotions are louder than his whisper. Emotional freedom does not mean you stop caring or feeling. It means you are no longer controlled by those feelings. It means you can acknowledge pain without being ruled by it. You can value people without being enslaved to their opinions, and you can face change without being paralyzed by fear. When you are emotionally free, you can make decisions based on revelation instead of reaction. You stop chasing validation because you already know you are approved by the one who matters most. This creates spiritual clarity, an inner stillness where God's instructions are not competing with the noise of insecurity or anxiety. Every major move of God in a person's life requires them to hear and obey quickly. And emotional entanglement slows that response. That's why he will often lead you through seasons where he gently or abruptly loosens your grip on certain attachments, teaching you that peace is not found in people's consistency, but in his presence. Emotional freedom allows you to hear his timing, sense his warnings, and recognize his open doors without hesitation. In this place, you are no longer distracted by what people think or how circumstances appear. Your spirit is tuned to heaven's frequency. And that clarity becomes the steering wheel that keeps your life aligned with destiny. All throughout Scripture, there is a consistent pattern. Before God elevates someone, he first separates them. This separation is never without reason. It is part of his divine process to prepare, purify, and position you for the next level of your assignment. Abraham had to leave his country, his relatives, and his father's household before God could make him the father of nations. Ruth had to leave the land of Moab and everything familiar to her before she could step into her destiny alongside Boaz. Esther had to be set apart from her ordinary life and brought into the king's palace before she could be positioned to save her people. In every case, separation was a prerequisite for elevation. This is because where you are now may not be conducive to the person you are becoming. The voices, environments, and habits that surrounded you in one season may not have the capacity to carry you into the next. God knows this, so he orchestrates a divine shift that often feels uncomfortable at times. The separation may come through sudden changes, unexpected endings, or closed doors that you didn't anticipate. But in hindsight, you will see that those separations were divine acts of love, protecting you from influences that could corrupt your purpose or delay your growth. Elevation demands capacity, and capacity is built in the quiet places where God works on your heart, renews your mind, and strengthens your spirit. Separation is not rejection. It is God's way of clearing the path so you can run without hindrance. It is his way of ensuring that when you step into the place he has prepared for you, you are ready to sustain it. Without that process, the very platform meant to bless you could overwhelm you. True strength is not proven by how tightly you can hold on, but by what you can willingly walk away from when God says it is time. Many people confuse attachment with loyalty, believing that staying connected to what is familiar is a sign of faithfulness. But in reality, there are moments when the most powerful act of faith is to release your grip. Walking away is not weakness. It is a declaration that you trust God more than your current comfort. It is an acknowledgement that your future is worth more than your familiarity. Weakness clings to the known out of fear of loss, fear of change, fear of being alone. Strength, on the other hand, recognizes that nothing is truly lost when you follow God's leading, because everything surrendered to him is returned in a greater form. Jesus himself demonstrated this when he left the glory of heaven to fulfill his earthly mission, trusting the Father with the outcome. A woman who can walk away from what no longer serves her purpose is a woman who understands her value. She is not defined by relationships, titles, or possessions, but by the calling and identity God has placed within her. This strength is not loud or forceful. It is steady, unshakable, and rooted in conviction. It allows you to leave without bitterness, to release without resentment, and to move forward without constantly looking back. The ability to walk away is not about rejecting people or opportunities. It is about protecting your destiny. It is choosing long-term purpose over short-term comfort. When you can walk away with peace, it is a sign that your trust is not in what you are leaving behind, but in the God who is leading you ahead. What you refuse to let go can become the very weight that holds you down, preventing you from soaring into the future God has prepared for you. Sometimes the things you cling to, whether people, habits, or familiar circumstances, become chains disguised as comfort. These attachments can slow your progress, cloud your vision, and drain your energy. When you carry unnecessary burdens, your wings grow heavy, making it difficult to rise above challenges or seize new opportunities. Destiny demands freedom, and freedom demands release. God's plan for your life requires space. Space to grow, to expand, and to be transformed. Holding on to the past, especially when it no longer aligns with God's purpose for you, restricts this movement. It is not always easy to recognize which attachments are weights and which are wings. Often, what feels safe and familiar is exactly what keeps you grounded in limitations. God, in his wisdom, knows that the process of detachment is necessary to protect your destiny. Just as an athlete must shed excess weight to perform at their peak, you too must shed what hinders your spiritual and emotional mobility. This detachment is an act of faith, trusting that what you release is not lost, but repositioned for your highest good. When you let go of what is no longer meant to accompany you, you create room for new blessings, fresh insights, and divine connections to enter your life. Your destiny is not found in accumulation, but in alignment. And sometimes alignment requires release. If you resist this, you risk remaining stuck in a place of stagnation, unable to move forward into the fullness of what God has planned. The weight of what you refuse to surrender can keep you earthbound when you are meant to fly. Every divine assignment carries with it a demand for undivided focus, and saying yes to God requires the courage to say no to distractions that pull you away from your purpose. When God calls you, he calls you into a place of intentionality where your time, energy, and heart must be aligned with his will. Distractions come in many forms: people who do not understand your vision, habits that drain your strength, opportunities that look good but don't fit your calling. To fully embrace what God has for you, you must become a master of your attention. This means guarding your mind and spirit fiercely, refusing to be swayed by every passing temptation or diversion. It means recognizing that not every yes is a blessing and not every opportunity is ordained. When you say yes to God, you create boundaries that protect your destiny. You learn to discern between what will build you up and what will tear you down. The ability to say no is an expression of your faith, a faith that trusts God's timing and provision above all else. Divided loyalties fragment your power and delay your progress. The woman who fully steps into her calling understands that focus is sacred. She knows that scattered attention scatters destiny. Saying yes to God is a commitment to walk in obedience, even when the road is narrow and the world offers easier paths. It is a recognition that greatness requires sacrifice, and that every distraction you resist strengthens your ability to hear God's voice clearly. The call to focus is not a limitation, but a liberation. It frees you from chaos and confusion, empowering you to move forward with confidence, clarity, and purpose. When you say yes to God without reservation, you unlock doors that no distraction can close, and you step into a life of destiny fulfilled. This woman, the moment to say yes has arrived. This is not just a call to obedience. It is an invitation to step into the fullness of who you were created to be. Your purpose is too great to be buried under hesitation. Your destiny too powerful to be chained by distraction. When you choose to detach from what holds you back, you are not losing. You are gaining a life marked by freedom, clarity, and divine alignment. Say yes to God's voice above every other noise. Say yes to the future he has prepared, even when the path is uncertain. Your strength is not measured by what you hold on to, but by your courage to release and trust. Today, stand firm in the truth that God's best for you is on the other side of your willingness to say yes. The power to transform your life lies in this simple, bold act of faith. Say it now. Say yes.